For activity 4, you guys are going to be assessing developmental levels of long jumpers. So we talked about jumping as a type of locomotor movement in which we project our body from a support surface, taking off on either one foot or both feet and landing on both feet. For this particular activity, we are going to be looking at standing long jumps. There's some background information in here with regards to the appropriate sequence of leg and arm actions. There's also a table. I've linked this as a shortcut in the document, and then the observation plan for the standing long jump is a link to the document as well. But these will be the textbook-based resources that you can use to kind of help you when you're scoring different jumpers. So this activity corresponds with the lab activity 5.2 since we are operating out of chapter 5. So you'll go to HK Propel and locate the chapter 5 content that has been assigned to you. Choose lab 5.2 in the activity. And when it takes you to this screen that has the instructions, the record sheet, the answer sheet, that type of thing, you don't need to download any of that, so skip over that screen. And then the rest of these instructions I will take you through actually in HK Propel. But as our regular submission stuff goes, you'll submit your completed answer sheet to the Activity 4 folder and in Dropbox by the posted due date, and use the regular naming convention on your file. That way if I have to download it on my computer, it's a little bit easier to find. Your grading criteria are posted in a rubric on Beachboard. The assignment is out of 32 points total. Here are some textbook resources that you could use. So this is table 5.5 from the textbook. It summarizes what the different developmental levels are referred to as well as a description of what the movement might look like if somebody fit into that developmental level. The observation plan for the standing long jump, I've linked a OneDrive link here, so that will be helpful if you need a visual representation or kind of more of a flowchart format for assessing your long jumpers. And I'll show a copy of that in this instructional video as well. So let's skip over to HK Propel. You should be in the Chapter 5 content. Click on Lab Activity 5.2. Again, ignore all of these download links because you have everything you need so far. And then you can click Next. From here, I want to direct your attention to the outline over on the left-hand menu bar. You're going to start with the guided long jumper number 1 video. You'll watch the video, and then once you click Next, you will be taken through a series of questions to help you kind of figure out which appropriate leg, arm, and action should go with your participant. If you need to review the video, you can always just click on the guided link again and then arrow through your questions. Okay, so these questions are exactly the same as what you would see in the observation plan, so you can kind of follow along with those. Whenever you choose an answer, I'm just clicking one for the hell of it, but it will tell you if your answer is correct or incorrect. So based on if you chose the correct selection, you can go back to the video and review if you made an incorrect selection, or keep continuing with the lesson if you made a correct selection. In your answer sheet, I'll move this over. For guided jumper number 1, you're going to put an X in the box that you decided their developmental level was at. So just literally putting an X in whichever box for leg and arm actions. I just chose those randomly. You'll do the same thing for guided jumper number 2. So this jumper has their own video followed by the same observation questions. And then for the non-guided jumpers, you have subjects 3 through 17. Their numbers are listed in their video thumbnails on the side. Once you start watching a video, it'll play in regular time followed by slow motion. And then to access the other videos in the queue, you just click on this side arrow and then you can scroll back through the appropriate subjects. You guys are only doing the odd numbered jumpers from 3 to 15. Okay. So once you've finished this component, you'll go back to your answer sheet. And for each jumper, you're just identifying the level that they attained for the leg and arm actions. So if jumper number 3 had a level of 2 for the leg and 4 for the arm. Okay, that's basically what you're doing, is just putting the level numbers that correspond with each step. Following that, we've got some questions for discussion. These first 2 questions are asking you to list a number that represents how many jumpers had the same developmental levels for both the legs and the arms, and then how many had different developmental levels. You've observed 7 individuals, or you will be observing 7 individuals for the activity. So the values that you put in 1 and 2 should add up to 7 if you've added things up correctly. Based on your conclusions or the values that you list in questions 1 and 2, you're going to use that information to determine if the arms and legs develop at the same or different rates for the standing long jump. If you conclude that the arms and legs develop at a different rate, go ahead and speculate which develops faster, the arms or the legs. For question number 4, you're just noting if an older jumper was at a lower level than a younger jumper in the leg or arm actions. We don't have the exact age of each of our jumpers, but you can kind of guess approximately who's older and who's younger just based on what each subject looks like. For number 5, we're coming up with a single task constraint and a single environmental constraint that could have possibly impacted the jump performances that you observed. And these are constraints that could potentially be applied to all jumpers. So for the environmental constraints, consider what the environment looks like in each video. And for task constraints, you're thinking about different elements of instruction or different components of the action goal of performing a long jump that could have constrained your subject's movements. For the final question, you are going to be identifying individual constraints or rate limiters specifically related to the task of a standing long jump. So remember, rate limiters are individual constraints that specifically limit the movements that you're looking at. Okay, so if you notice there's a trend amongst your participants of different ages, kind of compile a list of 3 individual constraints that are key factors in influencing the performance of a standing long jump. The last thing I wanted to show you before I end the video is what the observation plan looks like. So it's a flowchart figure. The leg actions are listed up at the top. The arm actions are listed at the bottom. Each step corresponds with the steps that are listed in Table 5.5 that I included in the instructions document. And these are the questions that are basically being asked of you as you go through the guided videos. So, do both feet leave the ground? Yes or no, right? And then you kind of keep going through the flow chart to figure out which developmental level or step your participant is at. Okay? If you guys have any questions while you're going through this or something doesn't seem super clear, please let me know.